Welcome to Worldview Matters, discussing controversial issues, discerning current events, defending biblical Christianity. No topic off limits. And now, here's your host, David Fiorazzo.
Hey, welcome to another show. Thank you so much for tuning in and sharing. We're talking with President of Wisconsin Family Council and Wisconsin Family Action today, Julaine Appling. She's Director of Office Operations. She's been there since 1998. And we've talked a lot in the past, but not on this show. So first time on Worldview Matters, Julaine Appling, welcome.
Well, it's good to be with you, David. I'm excited about your new opportunity and love the title, Worldview Matters. Let's roll.
It does. I was just watching a presentation that George Barna gave recently, and boy, do we have a lot of work to do in this country when it comes to worldview. But that's why we talk about the things we talk about. But before we get into some of the issues, and Planned Parenthood is one of them, and a couple other cases, tell us a little bit about Wisconsin Family Council, and for the listeners that aren't aware of what you guys do, just share a little bit, please.
Well, Wisconsin Family Council has been around, believe it or not, David, for about 36 years now, and maybe 37, if I can think my math through accurately. We've been doing the work we're doing for all those years, never wavering. Our mission is to strengthen, preserve, and promote God's plan for marriage and family, the sanctity of human life, and religious freedom in our state. We are unwavering in that commitment. We work with churches, we work with individuals. We have a Wisconsin Family Action arm that does our lobbying in the state capitol. We have a full-time director of legislation and legislative and policy. We are also heavily involved with the media. We offer them press releases. We respond to media requests. Been doing a lot of that here the last 2 or 3 days. We work with churches to resource them so that they understand the issues of the day and can then speak with authority and knowledge to their people. We have a church ambassador network that operates through Wisconsin Family Council that connects pastors, the shepherds of our church, to what we call the shepherds of government, which is also God's plan, right? Government is God's idea, not man's.
Amen.
And not for politics, not for policy, but to form redemptive, authentic relationships, earning the right ultimately to share the gospel. A wonderful opportunity for pastors to see our state capitol and elected officials as a mission field, to be honest with you. So we do a lot of research, we do a lot of involvement with elections, and we manage to stay busy in the midst of this culture, David.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to ask you about the Church Ambassador Network, and I know we have a lot we want to cover today, but I've got to talk about what a lot of people don't understand. What are you allowed to say and do in churches? Because people have this erroneous idea. They've bought the lie of the separation of church and state. So how are you going into churches and talking with pastors about these issues? Shouldn't that be kept out of the church and the church out of politics? People are really confused about that, Julaine, but I'm thankful for what you do. Talk a little bit about that to clarify for some people that might think we shouldn't really involve our church because maybe the Johnson Amendment, maybe there's some confusion there.
Well, I'm sure there is confusion, but I also think sometimes there's some willfulness, David, involved in this. There's a segment of our pastors, I think, unfortunately, that just use some of this as an excuse to not talk about some of these things. And look, I love pastors, and as an organization, we deeply appreciate them. They have a hard job. It is a tough job to pastor today. There's no doubt about that. But if the church does not speak truth to power and does not speak truth into our government, how do we expect to have any kind of different outcome from the kind of thing that we're dealing with now, with the abortion issue, with the sexual immorality issue, human sexuality, with all the issues? You talk about worldview matters. Okay, government is dealing with someone's worldview all the time. And if the church doesn't enter into those conversations, I think on at least 2 levels, with government officials, but also with their people in the pew, then the church is missing the mark and missing a golden opportunity to influence this culture, to have a say in the kinds of laws we have. Look, good law matters. Let me just put it out there. Law matters. And so I would prefer to live in a state, in a country where we have laws that reflect God's character, his principles, his precepts, and his commandments. Why? Because it's good for everyone. And even if they don't agree with it, and they may not know it's good for them, because we're told in Scripture that we are to love the Lord our God with all our heart, soul, and mind. And the second commandment is like unto it: love your neighbor as yourself. So we do that. And the church dare not stay separate, but government has no right to infringe in the religious freedom of the church, and to dictate theology, to dictate practice. They've overstepped their boundaries time and time again. And I think there are all kinds of things in the wings right here in Wisconsin that could mean they'll continue down that path if we're not very, very careful.
Yes, Julaine, you said a lot there. Thank you. I want to poke a little bit more and say, are you suggesting that we can legislate morality?
We legislate morality every time a bill is passed.
Exactly.
Every time, federal or state level, right? David, this is, to me, one of the biggest lies that Satan has foisted on American people. So what is morality? It's someone's view of what's right and wrong. We base our view of what's right and wrong on the Scripture, but not everybody does. They base it on themselves. Talk to liberals today. They are their own determinant of right and wrong.
Yep, they have a
worldview.
worldview.
They have a humanistic worldview, right?
Yep, yeah.
Well, and as a result, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to agree with you, and that's the kind of stuff they push, the godlessness and what we would call sin or evil or wickedness. That's the type of legislation they get behind: the murder of preborn babies in mothers' wombs, destroying young people's lives, like doing unnecessary surgeries and telling them not to be happy with themselves, and that they're just accidents, they have no purpose in life, and it goes on and on and on. So that's the kind of legislation that the left tries to push. You said it: humanism, secularism. We are in a battle, friends. That's why this worldview issue is so important. Julaine, let's keep this moving. I want to talk to you about your case. Since we haven't spoken in maybe 6 months, 9 months, maybe. You were attacked on Mother's Day a year and a half ago. Was it 2022? Okay, on Mother's Day. Your offices were firebombed there in Madison, Wisconsin, like many others across the country that were not really followed up on and investigated, and some are, who knows. But the Biden DOJ and FBI have become weaponized. They're not interested in pursuing real justice. That's my opinion, one man's opinion. But I want to hear your story and what happened. For those that don't know what happened, share what happened to your offices, how long it took for them to get involved, and that you guys finally had to offer a reward, and what's the status of the case now?
Well, sure. Look, the Dobbs decision was leaked on the Monday before Mother's Day. I knew then that something was going to happen. I just never dreamed it would be us. And on Mother's Day, or in the early morning hours of Mother's Day, someone here in Madison area probably came over to our office and attempted to completely destroy our office. Praise God, they weren't completely successful. They created 2 Molotov cocktails, tried to throw one in. It didn't break the window, so they broke the window, threw the second one in. It did explode, but not nearly like it could have had it been made, like a real Molotov cocktail should be made. Hate to say that I know more about Molotov cocktails than I ever dreamed I would, but and then because they didn't get the damage they wanted, they started a fire. So on the outside walls by our office was written, "If abortions aren't safe, then neither are you." And there was an anarchist symbol, all these things that are anti-law enforcement. Jane's Revenge took credit for it with a couple days later, but Jane's Revenge, David, I don't know. Jane's Revenge, I think, is much more of an internet type of thing where they instigate these things. Apparently, it's international and very, very difficult to kind of pin all this down. But a lot of months went by and nothing was done. The day that the firebombing took place, FBI was here, ATF was here, and of course law enforcement locally was here. They took out physical evidence. And finally, in March of this year, I was told that they had made an arrest of one person in Boston who was getting on a plane with a one-way ticket to go to Guatemala.
Wow.
And, yeah, this is kind of fun. He just so to put this thing in perspective, we were the first of the organizations to be attacked in the wake of the Dobbs issue in the leaked, opinion. And then after us, and I told them, by the way, the day that this happened, I told media outlets, and I certainly told law enforcement, the sooner you move on this, the less likely we are to have repeat situations across the country.
Copycats.
And yeah, well, and it happened. I mean, now we're over like 100 of these, and they're still going on. Yeah. But earlier this year, there was an anti-police rally at the state capitol, and they were writing graffiti on the sidewalk. And somebody over there said that looks like a lot like the graffiti that was on Wisconsin Family Action's wall. So they tracked the guys that got into the car after they had done the graffiti, figured out who owned it, and then started putting a tail on him. And in March, apparently ate outside somewhere. He was eating Mexican food and from someplace, and he dumped the half-eaten burrito in a trash can. They stripped the DNA off that half-eaten burrito and tracked this guy out there to Boston. Now he's back here in Wisconsin awaiting trial. Now, it is true that there are 2 other sets of DNA that are still out there, and I met with the local law enforcement, an FBI agent, and an attorney with the U.S. District Attorney's Office last week, and they are actively still pursuing all of that. And the date for the trial for the gentleman who's been arrested is coming up. He's charged under a federal law. This is all federal, that would have a 5-year minimum and a 20-year maximum sentence should everything go that way. But so anyway, that's where we are. I'm sitting in my office. The background that you see, this is, we've replaced everything that was blown up and ruined in their firebombing attempt. We've put all kinds of protective measures in place in our office to secure our staff, as we should, and taken the extra steps to make sure that whatever we are doing and wherever we are, that we have some measure of security.
Thank you, Julaine. It is so infuriating for the hundreds and hundreds of these cases across the country. Some of these are pro-life pregnancy centers that don't have a lot of money, and now they've got to hire more security. They've got to repair what was, like, I think of Jim Harden in Buffalo, New York, Compass Care. But anyway, we've got to move on. We've got to take a break already. When we come back from our break with Julaine Appling, we're going to talk about Wisconsin Family Action's response to Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin resuming abortions. And I thought abortions were illegal in the state, but we'll clarify that coming up next.
Today's show is brought to you by Harbinger's Daily, world news biblically understood. Stay informed at harbingersdaily.com.
Our guest, Julaine Appling, President, Wisconsin Family Council, and the news came out that Planned Parenthood announced it will resume performing abortions at its Madison and Milwaukee clinics, despite the fact that Wisconsin's abortion ban is still, allegedly, in effect. That's interesting, Julaine Appling. I remember during COVID, when a lot of things were shutting down and the church was told we were non-essential and churches shut down, Planned Parenthood they were putting out banners saying we're still open for business. And they were. But this is different because apparently in a lot of states there are still bans against abortion. Tell us about your response and what's going on here.
Well, the beautiful thing is that the day that the U.S. Supreme Court on June 24, 2022 said, hey, there's no right to abortion in our U.S. Constitution, and we're throwing this issue back to the states, our pre-Roe law in Wisconsin immediately kicked in. That very afternoon, Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin said they would no longer be doing abortions in their 3 facilities in Sheboygan County, Madison, or Dane County, and Milwaukee County. And so since that day and last year through yesterday, this past Monday, there were no, as far as we know, there were no abortions done because our ban prohibits most abortions in our state except for the life of the mother. And there was immediately after the U.S. court decision came down, 3 or 4 days later, our Attorney General Josh Kaul filed a lawsuit challenging our pre-Roe law. And it's been working its way through the court system. But at this point, David, no judge has come out and definitively said that statute, 940.04 in Wisconsin statutes, that statute is not enforceable. And given the reasons for it, that has not happened. Okay. And no, the legislature has not revoked it through legislative action. So as we talk right now, that statute should be in effect. But Planned Parenthood says, oh no, we're above the law. And we are going to take the law into our own hands. So basically what they're doing is flaunting the rule of law. It's horrible to kill these unborn children. It is a sign of a culture that has absolutely, totally rejected God. And he's given them over to largely to a debased, reprobate mind, if you look at Romans chapter 1. But Planned Parenthood wasn't alone in this. So along comes Governor Evers shortly after Planned Parenthood announced this last Thursday, saying, oh, this is wonderful. We're congratulating Planned Parenthood on the opening up their abortion facilities again and giving women the health care they need. So here we have the governor putting a stamp of approval on this illegal activity. We are just living Romans 1, verses 24 through 32 in real time, right here in Wisconsin, right now. The governor was wrong on so many levels. Number one, the rule of law should matter to the governor. But number two, David, how many times do people like you and I say this? Abortion is not health care.
It's not. It's not health care. But I wanted to quote part of what Evers said. Wisconsinites will once again be able to access vital reproductive health care and abortion services without exception for the first time since June of last year. This is critically important news for Wisconsin men and patients across the state. And here he is cheering this on, Julaine. But like you said something very important. It's as if he doesn't care about the rule of law. We just spoke with Pastor Andy Woods last week about some law schools now teaching that we should abolish the Constitution. Law schools in our country. So it's no surprise that the left, especially a leftist governor like Evers, would say, that's just, whatever. That's just a state statute. We can, I'm all for Planned Parenthood doing what they do. And it sends a message, I think. What do you think is going to happen now as a result of this news here?
Well, bear in mind, first of all, I'm not an attorney, so I'm not talking from a legally definitive position here, David.
Right.
We've talked to attorneys. In fact, I talked to an attorney today. He said, you know what they're saying in all this is the Constitution is basically worth the same thing as toilet paper.
Wow.
I mean, seriously, that's the degradation they're doing to the constitutions. I think that part of what's happened here, to be very candid about this, I think that probably every court at every level in Wisconsin, by that I'm talking about Dane County Court, the Dane County Court where the lawsuit was originally filed, the appellate court over in this district, as well as our state Supreme Court, has signaled to Planned Parenthood, hey, don't worry about it, we've got your back. This could go up to the Supreme Court. It could stop at a lower court, so somebody would have to appeal it. I'm not sure. Attorneys are looking at all of this. I think part of their calculation is probably, boy, with this flip we had in our Supreme Court as of August 1st, and by the way, I referred to that as an earthquake happened on August 1st in Wisconsin. It registered off the Richter scale because it was the seismic activity was so big when we flipped that Supreme Court from mostly 4-3 conservative to 4-3 liberal. So we're living with it, David.
Yep.
Elections have consequences. So all these people who are all in a stew about it. Where were you when we were out there begging for people to make sure they voted in April? So here we are.
Yep, I knew that would come up again. Elections have consequences because they do. But let's move on, Julaine. We're already under 10 minutes here to go. Donald Trump recently attacked pro-life legislation signed by Governor Ron DeSantis in Florida. Let me just explain and get your take on this. Pro-life leaders condemned President Donald Trump for calling a 6-week abortion ban a terrible mistake. Trump made the comments in reference to Florida's 6-week Heartbeat Protection Act, abortion ban, signed in the 2024, actually by DeSantis. And DeSantis, I want to get his response here. Donald Trump may think it's terrible. I think protecting babies with heartbeats is noble and just. And I'm proud to have signed the heartbeat bill in Florida. And he goes on. I got to share this. DeSantis also said, I don't know how you can even make the claim that you're somehow pro-life if you're criticizing states for enacting protections for babies that have heartbeats. That's Governor Ron DeSantis. So Julaine Appling, strong words, but I'm on DeSantis' side here. I want abortion abolished, period. Illegal across the country. But state by state, there are choices that need to be made on how to deal with this. Your thoughts on this recent news story?
Well, it's 2023. We're facing 2024, and Donald Trump is in full election mode. Absolutely unbridled election mode. I think he made a misstep here. How often when he campaigned in 16 and 20, and when he was president between 17 and 21, how many times did he have to kind of backpedal on things that he said? And I didn't mean that. Look, I agree with you, David. I agree that Ron DeSantis did absolutely the right thing. A 6-week heartbeat bill is an amazing thing because basically it stops all abortions because that heartbeat can be detected so early now, according with the technology we have. I think Donald Trump's going to have to be much, much more careful if he expects the pro-life community, the pro-life base in this country to gather around him and coalesce around him to try to win the presidency in 2024. His words, whether they were completely within context or not completely within context, do not resonate well with pro-life people like you and me. And countless tens of thousands of others around this country. And we're all scratching our head and say, well, I thought you were supposed to be pro-life. And when you come out and say something like that, it rattles us and it makes our confidence diminish.
Yeah, one reason it rattles us is because it shows a little willingness to compromise on a really important issue to a lot of people, human life, preborn babies in mothers' wombs. So I do want to say, I was proud of the legislation and the policies during the Trump administration. Kudos, and I continually gave kudos to Donald Trump and his administration, the most pro-life action that we've seen in history. So even more than Ronald Reagan. So I definitely am thankful for what he did when he was in office. But now to take a little step back to try to maybe look more moderate, I don't know that was wise. So let's move on, Julaine. One more thing. We only have time for this case here. Catholic Charities Bureau versus Wisconsin Labor and Industry Review Commission. There's something that happened back in April that the Wisconsin Supreme Court was to decide if this particular Catholic ministry was religious. What is this about? And give us an update on where this case is at.
Yeah, well, this is fascinating. This actually happened about 4 or 5 years ago, that the Catholic Charities Bureau coming out of Superior was told by this agency in the state that they had to pay into the unemployment compensation program. And they said, no, we get the religious exemption because what we're doing is religious. And the agency said, oh, no, it's not. So here you had a state agency telling a religious organization named the Catholic Charities Bureau that what they were doing was not religious. And so this thing has wound its way to the Supreme Court. Our organization joined with a number of other groups to file a friend of the court brief in support of the Catholic Charities Bureau. Because, David, if the state can start determining what constitutes religious activity or religious organization, in my opinion, it is not a very far step or leap to tell churches, oh, I'm sorry, you have a soup kitchen, or you have a used clothing program for the poor in your community, or maybe you have an addictions ministry, or maybe you have a youth program that reaches out, and we don't think that's religious. How far? That's not a big leap.
Yep.
This is about religious freedom, and who gets to determine what is religion or religious? This is a dangerous time. And think about the court it's before here in Wisconsin. So people all of this country that are listening to this and don't live in Wisconsin, pay attention, because this is big.
Yeah, that's what you just said. What's the difference between religion and religious? And there's just such a fine line in how it's going to be defined, and we don't want government to define that. But anyway, We're already down to just a couple minutes, Julaine. So I just want to say thank you for all the work you do. We're nonprofit here. I know you're nonprofit as well, and you receive donations. Wisconsin Family Council. How can people get in touch with you and get more information about what you do there?
Sure. Thank you, David. They can contact us by phone at 888-378-7395 or visit our website at wifamilycouncil.org. Email us, text us. All of that's available through our website. I think you can text us through our website. We talk about texting like, everybody does this, but we love to have questions from people. And by the way, Thursday, we're having what we call a huddle up with our heroes in the evening at 6:30. If they jump on our website, I think if they go to wifamilyaction.org, David,
Okay.
they can go to events and sign up for it. It's either council or event or action. Things are a little busy right here. By the way, when Planned Parenthood broke this news, I was out of the office. I was up north. We were doing events. I did 12 to 15 interviews that day, trying to keep all of this straight, because this was big news about Planned Parenthood killing our future and doing so illegally. Incredible days. Just
wow.
Incredible.
The left, I say the God haters have become emboldened. I also say that they still need to be reached with the gospel. And once we tell them the good news about Jesus Christ, because it is an open invitation, they have to receive, but it's not up to us how they receive. A lot of them are in rebellion and denial of our Creator, which causes them, here the worldview comes up again at the end of the program here today, Julaine. Their worldview says there is no God, there's no Creator, so I am my own God. I can do whatever I want, and we have to worship nature, Mother Earth, or whatever they call it. So nature is more important than human beings. So we're in this mess. But Julaine, thank you for what you do. We'll talk to you again before, Lord willing, before the end of the year. But thanks for your time today. God bless you, sister.
Likewise, David. God bless you as well.
All right. Well, guys, tomorrow, let's see, Chad Davidson. He's an elder at Blessed Hope Chapel, Simi Valley, California. Also a very integral part of Good Fight Ministries. And you can go to goodfight.org to get a little sneak peek on tomorrow's show with Chad. And then Wednesday, Dan Fisher. He's a pastor in Oklahoma. He's part of Liberty Pastors. He wrote a book on bringing back the black-robed regiment. Also, a book on unlimited submission with a question mark, whether the church should submit in all cases to the government. And then we've got author Pamela Welk, cancer survivor, and she's just an amazing evangelist. So that's going to be on Thursday. Thanks for tuning in, for sharing. And as always, God bless you and keep speaking the truth about things that matter.